You think time heals everything. People say that without knowing.
You think time heals everything. People say that without knowing what time really does. Time doesn't heal. Time exposes. It digs and peels and brings back things you prayed would stay buried. And in my case, time didn't just expose the past. It dragged it into daylight right in front of my children. I still remember that morning. My son stormed into my house, yes, stormed. He had that expression his father used to have when anger and disappointment mixed into one shade of red. He didn't even sit. Didn't hug me. He just stood there, hands shaking, holding printed pages like evidence for a crime. I should have known what was coming. "Mother, who is Milo?" He said it like a police officer interrogating a criminal. For a moment I couldn't breathe. It was as if someone suddenly turned the world into thick, cold air. I had spent years trying to make sure they never discovered anything about that period of my life. Not because I'm ashamed of love, we all deserve love, but because it wasn't love, not always. Sometimes it was hunger, sometimes loneliness, sometimes lust pretending to be affection. And I didn't want my children to know that version of me. He shoved the papers at me. Printouts, emails, old messages, screenshots. My past organized like a case file. He shouted, "You were sending money to him? For years." There it was. The thing I thought was invisible. Yes, I helped Milo. Financially. Only sometimes. But sometimes becomes always, and always becomes a drain, and before you know, your bank statements look like emotional confessions. I didn't say anything. When you reach my age, silence feels safer than explanation. Was he your lover? He asked that like he hated me. I wanted to tell him that Milo gave me something no one else was offering: attention, warmth, youth, escape. I wanted to say I gave Milo something too: support, protection, a place in the world he could cling to. But anything I said would sound like justification. If stories like this speak to you, consider subscribing. So I simply said, he was someone who made me feel alive at a time I thought I was already dead. That sentence ruined everything. My son's face twisted with disgust. He told me I was irresponsible, immoral, pathetic. He told me I threw away family for lust. Words are knives when spoken by your own child. He threw the papers on the floor and walked out. And that was the last time he visited me for nearly 3 years. Did I deserve it? Probably. But love and longing are never clean. That's what young people don't understand. They think morality is a straight line, good here, bad there. But life is not a straight line. It curves and melts and dissolves in places. Did I do wrong? Yes. Did I suffer for it? Oh, more than anyone knows. Later that evening, I sat at the dining table staring at those pages, shocked that every message, every transfer, every confession was now documented proof of a part of myself I thought I could erase. Funny thing is, I never regretted the relationship itself. What I regretted was losing my children because of it. There's a difference. People judge us old women harshly. If I were younger, they would call it romantic, daring, passionate. But when a woman passes 50, 60, suddenly desire becomes shameful. People think we're meant to stop wanting, stop needing, stop feeling anything except grandmotherliness. But my heart kept beating, even when my family wished it wouldn't. That night I cried like a teenager. I cried for Milo. I cried for my son. I cried for the version of myself that had tried, desperately, to be both. And do you want to know something? Part of me still whispered, if Milo called right now, I would still answer. And then another part whispered, he wouldn't call. He got what he needed. Yes, that's when I realized the truth. I wasn't grieving love. I was grieving the illusion of it. If you felt something tonight, leave a like so I'll know. The day my daughter became my mother. You know, mothers always fear disappointing their sons, but daughters punish differently. My daughter didn't scream, didn't accuse, didn't slam doors. No, she arrived quietly, like sadness disguised as politeness. She walked into my house carrying flowers, white lilies, as if she already knew something had died. She sat down, folded her hands, and looked at me like I was a fragile animal someone had left on her doorstep. And in that moment, I realized something terrible. My daughter didn't come to ask. She came to forgive. And forgiveness hurts more than anger ever could. "Mom," she said gently, as if addressing a patient, "you don't need to hide things from us anymore." I wanted to shout. I wasn't hiding to deceive you. I was hiding because you still see me as a mother. You forget I was a woman first, that I still am. But I kept listening. She continued, "I know loneliness can make us vulnerable." That word vulnerable stabbed me. Not wrong, but painful. It suggested weakness, dependency, neediness. Things I never wanted my children to associate with me. She put her hand on mine. That soft, pitying touch. "Mom, he used you." I almost laughed. Used me? As if Milo was the only one taking something. Have you ever loved someone who reminded you of who you used to be? Someone whose youth you could borrow just by being looked at? I wasn't a victim. I was a participant. But of course I didn't say that. My daughter exhaled, as if she'd practiced the speech in the car. You don't have to chase validation from young men to feel valuable. Validation. She used that word like it was a diagnosis. And here's the cruel irony. Youth and beauty are things women are punished for losing, but also punished for trying to reclaim. Men buy cars, marry younger wives. No one calls it desperation. But an older woman wants affection? Suddenly it's pathetic. She said, "We're worried about you. If you'd like to hear the next chapter, stay with me." Worried, as if I were a child playing with something sharp. I finally whispered, "Do you think I'm someone who can't think for myself?" Silence. Then she said quietly, "I think you're still someone who wants to be loved." I felt my throat swell, because that was true, terribly true. What she didn't know was that Milo wasn't the only young man who ever noticed me. There were others. Smaller encounters, moments I never acted on, but moments that reminded me I still existed beyond motherhood. One time, a younger neighbor helped me carry groceries inside. He complimented my perfume. My own husband hadn't noticed my perfume in 15 years. Little things become oxygen when you've gone so long without breathing. But my daughter didn't want explanation. She wanted control. Her voice shifted, firm, almost parental. "You need therapy, not Milo. Therapy." As if desire could be talked out like a bad habit. I said, "I'm not sick, darling." She squeezed my fingers. That's exactly what someone vulnerable would say. I felt so small. Funny. I spent decades raising her. And suddenly she was determined to raise me. Then she asked the question I feared. Are there others after him? My heart almost stopped. I wanted to protect myself, but I also wanted honesty. So I answered carefully. There were moments, not relationships. She looked afraid for me then. Not angry, not disappointed, afraid. Like she discovered her mother was walking along the edge of something dangerous. And here is the cruelest part. She hugged me. A tight, warm, protective hug. "You don't need anyone but us," she whispered. But she was wrong. I did need something. Not sex. Not money. Not even passion. I needed to feel like a woman again. Not just an aging caretaker waiting to disappear. She left after an hour, kissed my forehead, told me she loved me, but I could tell she didn't respect me anymore. And that was harder than losing Milo.
Haven't told you yet.
I finally understood what Milo really wanted. I always knew Milo needed something from me, but I spent years pretending I didn't know what it was. At first it felt like affection, then companionship, then dependency. But here's the truth. Lonely people always find each other, because we're easy to recognize. I remember the turning point with him. It was subtle, almost invisible. We were having tea on my terrace. He liked to sit near the edge, like someone who always needed escape nearby. He suddenly asked, "Do you think I could move in someday?" I felt my heart expand and collapse at the same time. Move in? With me? I wanted to say yes. I wanted to say no. I wanted to say anything except what I actually said. Someday, maybe. He smiled. But his smile wasn't relief. It was calculation. Like he'd confirmed I was willing to cross one more boundary. I began noticing small things. He always arrived after asking for something, never just to be with me. "Can you help me with rent this month? Could you loan me something until I get paid? I just need a little help." Always a little. Always temporary. Always just enough to sound innocent. Sometimes he would say, "You're the only one who understands me," which felt flattering, until I realized it was also a trap. One night, he didn't answer my messages. It wasn't the silence that bothered me. It was the anxiety I felt inside that silence. Anxiety that felt suspiciously like addiction. The next day he replied, "Sorry babe, fell asleep." Babe, a word he used when he wanted comfort. I asked where he was. He said with friends. His tone was defensive, and for the first time, I wondered if there was someone else giving him what I gave. Just younger, and without wrinkles, and without money attached. Then jealousy arrived. An ugly feeling. I hated myself for it. I asked casually, "Were there girls with you?" He answered, "There are always girls." Not as reassurance, as warning. I suddenly understood. I wasn't his love. I was his certainty. Women his age were choices. I was security. I wanted to confront him, but when we're afraid of losing someone, we choose silence. Silence keeps them near, even if they're already gone emotionally. One evening he came over smelling of unfamiliar perfume. Not mine. Not a neutral scent. Youthful. Artificial. Something you only wear when you want someone to bite your shoulder. I didn't ask. I just pretended I didn't notice. Sometimes pretending keeps illusions alive longer than truth ever could. Weeks later he asked again, "Could you help me with something?" I knew what he meant before he said it. Money. I didn't ask why, because if I asked he might tell me, and the truth might hurt more than the lie. He texted less, came less, smiled less. Affection began turning into obligation. But here's what nobody admits. Being needed feels dangerously close to being loved. Then came the message that changed everything. I might be moving to another city. My chest tightened, as if my bones suddenly understood abandonment. He said he needed a new start, new work, new life. Asked, "Where do I fit in that new life?" He replied, "I'll always care about you." Care. Not love. Not stay. Not choose. Just care. That evening I finally broke. I wrote him messages I should never have sent. Long. Emotional. Vulnerable. Embarrassing. I asked him if he still wanted me. He replied hours later, "Of course, but I need to focus on myself now." Which means, I've outgrown what you give me. And this is the part most women my age never say out loud. We don't fear losing young lovers. We fear returning to invisibility. Suddenly I wasn't desired, just aging again, just fading again. The fantasy ended, but the loneliness remained. And loneliness is always louder after love. The truth my children were never meant to carry. After Milo drifted away, my house went quiet again. Not peaceful quiet, empty quiet. I filled the space with anything I could. Gardening, cooking, pretending to enjoy shows I didn't care about. But silence has a habit of reminding you who you are without distractions. And I hated who I was without him. My children learned everything slowly. Comment here, a rumor there, screenshots, bank statements, old messages I forgot existed. Piece by piece, they built a version of me that felt foreign and humiliating. I wasn't a woman anymore. I was their poor mother who got manipulated by a younger man. And pity is more violent than judgment. One evening they both came together, sat across from me like a small intervention. My son asked if I needed professional support. My daughter suggested I move closer to them so they could keep an eye on me. Keep an eye on me, as if I were a fragile patient unable to make choices. I tried to explain what Milo meant to me, but every sentence sounded pathetic. He made me feel seen. He talked to me. He listened. My daughter cried, "Mom, that wasn't love. That was manipulation." Maybe, maybe not. People always assume the younger one manipulates. But loneliness manipulates too. Desperation manipulates too. Sometimes we manipulate ourselves. The confrontation ended badly. Voices raised. Accusations thrown. My son called it disgusting. My daughter said it was sad and dangerous. They weren't wrong, but they weren't right either. The truth is complicated, messy, human, and embarrassing. Yes, Milo benefited from me financially, but I benefited emotionally. Everyone got something. Everyone paid something. That's not love, not friendship, not exploitation. It's a transaction called loneliness. After that night, they stopped visiting frequently. Calls reduced to once a week. Messages slowly turned into routine. How are you? Need anything? Taking your medication? They became caretakers, not children. I became responsibility, not family. I wanted to scream. I'm still a woman. I still feel. I still desire. But society believes women expire emotionally after a certain age, especially mothers. Milo eventually disappeared. No goodbye. No closure. Just vanished. Occasionally I see a new photo of him online with some young girl, smiling, drinking, living. I never react. I just stare too long. And in rare moments, I whisper inside myself, I hope she gives him what I couldn't. But that's a lie. What I really hope is, I hope he remembers me even once. Because memory is the only immortality ordinary people get. Years passed. My hair whitened. My back bent. But something else happened strangely. My anger dissolved. My shame softened. My loneliness became manageable. Age forces acceptance the way storms shape trees. Slowly and painfully, but permanently. And this is what I finally learned. My children didn't lose respect for me because I loved a younger man. They lost respect because they realized I was human, flawed, hungry, vulnerable, messy. They preferred the idea of me, not the truth of me. Do I regret Milo? No. I regret the years I believed women should stop needing connection after 50. You never stop needing touch. You only stop admitting it. Now I sit by the window most evenings, watching couples walk by. Young, old, careless, tired. Sometimes I touch my own hand just to remind myself I'm still here, still real, still capable of feeling warmth. And sometimes, just sometimes, I imagine Milo knocking on my door again, smiling that careless smile, saying, "Miss me?" I would answer, "Yes, but I miss the woman I was with you more," because that woman, that version of me, felt alive. And being alive, even briefly, even foolishly, is worth every consequence.